we are here to reconnect with the forest by looking into traditional knowledge and practice. And next to me, I have a leading artist, Björn Ola Lind. You are not only a leading artist, but you actually originate partly from Härnösand, the location for the Swedish Learning Hub. So now you will take us on a journey into the forest where we can listen and learn from our surrounding nature. So please guide us.
Thank you. Thank you and welcome to Härnön. Härnön, the name Härn is a Norse goddess. So this is the island of the Norse goddess Härn. Also welcome to Urudaki Sami village. This is the winter village for Urudaki Sami village. So they are allowed to have their reindeers here each 50 years. Nowadays, with all the roads, they don't come here as often, but we never know because of the climate change. They desperately need the food for the reindeers. So further north, the Sami villages inlands starting to come out to the coast in outside Umeå. So you never know. Suddenly we have the reindeers here again. I would like you just to follow me to join into the forest. I'm going to speak out of the Sami perspective, mostly. I'm raised in the north, further north. I've been living here for 28 generations, my ancestors. And the last 15 years, I've been working especially with the Sami basic mythology and been doing films for Swedish television with that. I'm also adopted by Aborigines in Australia, so I'm going to also tell something about their perspective about the forest. When we enter the forest, I think it would be good if you could walk in silence. We go to the place where we're going to eat our lunch, and then I'm going to give you some more instructions and some more information. So must welcome. And we have to bring the food. So we have to, and if it's someone who has a bad back, who needs someone to carry something, please just find one. Okay. Welcome to the imaginary Sami cot. The Sami cot is a round building made of wood, and the building is made out of 2 trees with the roots to the top, and then 2 trees on the other side with the roots to the top, and then between that you have what you call a big branch, and then you're putting the näver. It's birch bark towards the trees, and outside the birch bark you're having what's that name in English? Torv. Yeah. Sorry? Soft. Soft. Okay, I learned something new. That means that you had a building that was really warm, insulated from the cold, and it on the ground you insulated about this height with different types of branches from fir, and then you had reindeer skin on the top. So when I've been talking to old people, when they had to live in the Swedish houses, they thought they were so cold because they had just one stove in the middle and a wooden cabin, and it was just warm around the stove, and the hair was freezing towards the walls. But in the Sami cot, you were nearly never cold. So it was a really good way of using the nature, and it was also an image of the world. So it was the upside down tree where you have the roots pointing upwards. And in the cot there were this the female goddesses. So it was also sort of an image of the woman or the Mother Earth, because the female goddess Madraka, she had 3 daughters. So Madraka is sort of the Mother Earth, and the 3 daughters living in the cot. So here we have the imaginary entrance between you two. Wow. And this is, if you imagine it's sort of like the pussy. You're going into the entrance, and you have an entrance where you have the goddess of Yuksaka. And beside the entrance you ought to have a tiny hole for her. You were not allowed to put something in before that, because that was where she came with the messages. And here in the middle we have Saraka, which is the goddess of the inner uretu, the livmoder, the womb. And then you have the opening to the sky where you had Uksaka. So, and Uksaka was also always connected to the stars. And she was also the hunting goddess with the bow. You can see that in the Sami, what we know about the early Sami culture, often in the like Tacitus, who like the year 0 around Christ, the birth of Christ, he was here, and he's talking about how the Fenni, which was the old name for the Sami people, the women and the men were skiing together and hunting together. So it was quite the culture was in balance between the female and the male. You can also read further on, like in the Middle Ages, that the women and the men had the same rights on the thing, which is like in the court, and that's like 600 years before we had it in Sweden, in the rest of Sweden. So before I lit the fire, I just want to thank Saraka, and that's sort of a gratitude. As a gratitude for us being able to have the fire together. And most things you do in the Sami culture, you do it in silence, or you do it in joik, which is a way of singing your inner voice. You don't sing about something. You don't sing about the river, about the forest, or about a person. You sing the river, or you sing a person. So when you sing a person, the person is here among us. And that's also a concept when you enter a forest. In the Sami language, you don't go beside the river or into the forest. You go the forest, or you go the river. So you're part of it. It's a living, the landscape is something that's alive, and we are a part of it. It's one body, and you have to know that you're walking the forest. You are the forest. Okay. When you find the traces of the Sami people, you often can find the places where they had the fire, and the difference between a fire. This is not really proper done, but if we would have made this proper, we would have had some flat stones beneath to protect the earth. And then you had smaller stones around. Often when you find a fire which is made of a hunter or something, you don't find this protection of the earth beneath. And that's both a practical thing. So you don't want the fire to go into the ground and into the earth, and suddenly you can have a really huge fire burning from beneath. But it's also a respect and an image that you ought to leave as few traces as possible. So often the when you're talking about spirituality in the Sami culture, it's really mixed into the practical, ordinary life. It's not something you do just in the church or just for yourself. There are in the Sami landscape, there are places which are sacred. And it's like when we are talking about red-listed species in the nature, they are really special in one way. But you can compare it with your body, with there are different organs, and the whole body is sacred. You can't just leave the heart by itself or the liver. You don't have a full human living with that, and that's sort of like the same thinking in the sacred landscape. You can say that the landscape in the Sami tradition is multi-layered. That means that you have one practical part of it. We know where to, if you want a shaft, for instance, you have to wait for 25, 30 years, because you go to a birch and you take away so much of the birch bark, so it can't heal itself, so it starts to go like that, and then you get really, really strong handles, but it takes 25 years. And also in the my grandfather, he said that a good man should have at least make handles for 3 generations in before. So you have sort of like the really long perspective. You don't think just in 4 years or 3 months or whatever. You have to think in generations. And this multi-layered landscape, which both this practical thing and the social aspect and the spiritual aspect, they are mixed into each other. So when you in the Sami culture, you probably heard about Seiti, or at least someone heard it, or nobody. I'm not sure. Yeah, but they are sort of these sacred stones, or they could also be made in wood. But they are, and you could have a Seiti for getting good fish or for good hunt, or but you could also have a Seiti for wishing things. So it's sort of special stones on special places, and the Seitis were sort of placed in the landscape where you have liminality. You can walk between it's sort of when you coming to a place and it changes into the landscape changes into another world. When you came to that place, you have to sort of stop and ask for permission to go into that new part of the landscape. And often you find the satyrs on these places where the change is really obvious. Beside of that, you also have your ancestors with you. Ancestors as relatives been walking and been having their reindeers, or they had their cots on different places, but also burial sites for both ancestors in the human world, but also in the animal world. So you had, for instance, for the bears, you had special bear where you buried bears, and you buried them with the skeleton intact in anatomic order, so that you would be sure that the bear would rise up again and come to you and offer you new meat, because there is you don't really kill the bear. The bear offer its meat to you, and that's you have to be knowing that the bear is your brother or your uncle. The bear is a part of yourself. So the mythology, which is the sort of the big part of the Sami knowledge, is put further to next generation by the mythology. And in the mythology, you are always told that you are connected to different animals, to the could be to the reindeer, or to the moose, or to different species. And you can also, in the shamanic world, you can transform yourself in sort of the dream world, and you get knowledge from the spiritual animals. So that means when you're killing the bear, you're killing part of yourself. So everything is done with a gratitude and knowledge that the same force that takes this animal is going to take me further on. Yeah. Now I've been talking a lot. Maybe I'm also take something to eat, and I have you all eaten? Yeah. I would say something about in this cot we are in right now, that you never cross the fire, you walk around it. So when you walk, you walk around it and go out to the entrance. I would like you to take some time, about half an hour, to go out in the surroundings, look for the one thing is look for a tree. In the Sami culture, you went to a tree, often the oldest, sort of the wisest tree, Um, and from that tree, you could put your inner wishes, or you could put your gratitude, or whatever you would like to talk to the tree of. It's like a meditation place. So I would like you to, for one thing, to find a tree where you can just feel you're connected to it. And if you have a phone, you can take a photo from that too, and come back with that. I would also like you to, when you're walking here, to find, if you see the landscape, and see if it changes somewhere, where it's opening up, or you coming towards water or whatever, and see, memorize that place. Also take a photo of that, sort of like a liminal place where you could, where you should. Sorry, you didn't hear? Yeah, no. Shall I take it from the beginning, or?
The total story from the beginning.
Yeah, the total story from the beginning. Yeah, the last. Yeah, I would like you to make two things. First is to find a tree for meditation, or for a tree for which you can connect to, and that could be a tree you put your wish into, or your grief or your sorrow, or whatever. And I also told that in the Sami tradition, you often go to the oldest tree, and you can ask for permission. For instance, if you needed to take something, you needed to take some piece of wood for something, you could ask that tree for permission. So find that kind of tree. The other thing is to find a place where the landscape is shifting. So this, and on both of these places, if you have a telephone, take a photo of it, and then if you are out now for half an hour, and we come back, we can share what we've been experiencing during this time. Yeah. And I'm also adopted by Aborigines in Australia. So before we go out, I would like to do something that if we can see this as a ceremonial piece, going out in silence and doing these connections, we need to open the space for that. So I bring my jidaki, which is the jidaki means the voice of the earth, and it's often referred in Europe as didgeridoo, which is a colonialistic way of pronouncing it, because that's a rhythm. It's like somebody came to Europe and said that all instruments is called toot because you're blowing it. So this is a jidaki, and I'm adopted by Bunjalung people. So this is I was taught something called sacred playing techniques, which is something I'm not allowed to talk about, but I'm allowed to use it. Okay. I'm going to take something to eat, and good luck. Yeah, the opening is widening. I didn't tell you that the opening in the back is the holy opening. It's where you always took the bear which was the most holy animal among everything else, which was also holy. You brought it into the cot that way. So you were never allowed to have anything standing there. And it's also a practical thing, because if you have air coming in there and you have air coming in there into the fire, you don't have the smoke. But it's conceptualized. And when the bear came in, the women were standing inside the cot, and they were chewing alder tree, the bark of alder, which make a juice which is red like the blood. And when the men came into the cot, the women spitted in the men's faces to mark them, because the energy from the bear went into the man. Often it was man who who were killing the bear, and that made them too strong to have intercourse with some women. So for 3 days, they weren't allowed to have intercourse, because if they did, and there was a child being born, that child would be full of rage, full of the energy of the killed animal, killed bear. So for 3 days you had a ceremony where you ritually ate the bear, and then you buried it with the bones in an anatomical order, so it would reappear again. Yeah. Okay. I must stop talking. How have you had it in the forest? Is this good? Is it someone who want to share something? Yeah, yeah.
Being a teacher,
Yeah. Do so.
maybe we can divide into small groups, and in these small groups, show our pictures and tell.
Yeah.
No, I was just suggesting maybe it's easier if we are gathering in small groups, and within these groups we share what we experienced. So
Yeah.
it will be.
Yeah.
Everyone will participate.
So we are like 30 persons. If we get 10 groups, if we divide into 3. Yeah. And we can take like 5 minutes of just and then we share. It's always good to have a teacher.
Om dina filmer och sådär.
Mm.
Och lite annat.
Ja.
Vi jobbar med projekt 2022 initiativet som
I think it's time to share. So if we shall we just start with we're going in we start with you and we go around and you can share something about your experience and what you've been talking about.
Okay. I shared a picture where I sat down close to the water, where when I was looking to the right, I could almost nearly see the water, but then when I looked to the left, I could clearly see it. So I was talking about, actually, it depends on which direction you look into. And I got very inspired yesterday by when we talked about the virus, or that actually can also use it as a point of action and inspiration, even though it's very sad for the individuals that are affected, but still you can use it as a point of action in your personal engagement.
I think, Anna, you should continue to educate us on
Thanks a lot. Right. I think we were just reflecting on how different we were just reflecting on how different this environment feels in comparison to a built environment like the one in town or in Stockholm where I live. And trying to think about, why I think this is a sort of environment we probably evolved in for most of our existence on this planet. So our brain, our soul, our mind kind of really feels very good here. And I think scientists have tried to explain this. I don't know if you've heard about this fractal theory, where they're more like fractal shapes in these environments. So our brains kind of process that a lot easier than the geometric shapes, like the squares and the triangles that we build. But also just someone else was mentioning in the group that there's a sort of power here that maybe we can't put into words, like with the ocean or the sea, in the forest, something you just feel but you can't sort of rationalize. So there were some other reflections, but I think I'll stop there and maybe let someone else continue.
Well, we talked about generally the feeling of, especially being here in a new place, meeting the coast, being on a winter ground, but looking at the sea, which represents somehow more like a summer experience. For me it became like a contrast. I had to somehow okay, where am I? Somehow. And then we talked about the trees, how different they all were in this kind of forest. Like every tree was different in the shape, and personally I found it very difficult to even somehow identify this mother tree, because they were all so different. And that's different from another kind of forest where you easily somehow spot them. And also in the industrial forests where you leave those trees and you can see them. So that was very interesting, and how hard life they have, and with how little soil or ground or some little hole in the rocks, they can survive. Amazing. Thinking about us, we need so many things, we think. Maybe we don't.
Yeah, I just felt this great reverence as well for the forest and nature, and being, like you mentioned as well, Anil, that this connectedness to the elements that just seems so fundamental to our existence somehow, and this connection with earth, with wind, and with the fire we had here, and water that we can see. It's beautiful.
I have a picture of more or less that I wanted to share with you. I don't know if I guess it's not so easy for you to see, but here's the picture. You can come and see it later if you want to. It's a picture of a tree. And if you look more closely, you can see that there's someone sitting in the very top of the tree, which is me. Because this tree really, it was like a ladder. It invited me to climb all the way up in it. And I sat there for a long time and just felt this, that being a part of the tree, swaying with it and really feeling with it. And I had this picture of humanity should be like that to a greater extent, to feel themselves a part of the nature around. So it was a really cool experience sitting there, being a part of the tree.
So this group shared their experience with the trees and the connection they felt. Petter, for instance, said that he took a nap next to a tree and felt the peace. It just invited him. And Adriana here talked about the grandness of the tree that she saw and how it reminded her about another tree at home. And for me, I remember the thing that you talked about, permission, asking the tree for permission. And I decided not to do that. And then I walked away and my shawl got stuck in the tree and this fell. So I see this as a, a little gift from the tree.
We talked about routines, work routines, going to work 9 to 5. What do we want to work with? What do we feel glad about? And every one of us felt blessed being here in the nature. And one wrote a song. So it's a source of to be creative. What was your question?
You said you wrote a song?
Not me.
No.
No. Eva Maria?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us, Eva Maria?
Share it?
Yes, okay. If you close your eyes.
Yeah.
I can sing.
Do you want a mic?
Use the microphone. I can feel the fire.
Oh, yes. Du är god mot mig. Jag får vara dina händer och skapa med din nåd och kraft. Du styrker mig i hopp och glädje.
Thank you. Wow.
We shared experiences, and Andrew looked at this tree, so we're close, so we can look at this tree. And maybe you can express what you felt.
Yeah, I didn't have to go so far. It was right here in front of me. I guess I was thinking mostly about the ability of things in nature to grow in harmony in this ecosystem, and the result is something like this. And I start to think about we are getting quite far away from that and trying to create our own, shape our own realities and our own ecosystems. And I mean, we transform everything and we're not living in harmony, and this balance, it's not present in our lives. And I think this is something quite miraculous. I wouldn't mind being more like this.
I also met a tree who told me to lay down and gave me her energy. It was nice. So I took a photo laying down, looking up. They have a lot of stories to tell us.
We spoke about the body, the mind, and the spirit, and how it's all connected. And I think the uniqueness of bringing or inviting spirituality into your life, because we're having one of these SIDA courses that we've all attended thousands of times. But suddenly you bring spirituality and another part of your being is opened up. And that we come out here. This is something you usually wouldn't do in these kind of trainings, wherever trainings we do. But it opens us up into something that we've probably longed for and we sometimes shut down. But then we get an opportunity to reach into that depth that we all carry and reminds us of life and of joy and who we really, really are, the essence of being human.
So on the edge of the cliff, there was a tiny little tree that I greeted. And beyond that tree, there were a number of waves that were not like slowing down. They had some energy, and I was refreshed by that energy to don't give up, people. There are some ways that we need to ride on still.
Yeah, I think we are. Yeah.
At the end of our session, we reflected on the fact that most people in this world don't have a connection to nature. They only see houses and streets and sand, maybe. So maybe we should think about this, how we could share. I don't know how, but in order to feel connectedness, you have to be there. And how can most people attain access to nature?
Oh. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Will you say just that little part about the trickster that I think...
Yeah. I can take this one away. Yeah, for 15 years ago, me and my friend Torke Lundberg started to... Actually, I was working with an archaeologist in this area, looking for cave paintings and paintings on the cliffs. And this region went from being a really marginal region where you nearly had no paintings to being one of the ones who had most paintings. So we had a really intense period. And my deepest questions were then, why is the only thing we find red pictures with the motifs of moose or elk? And then I'm adopted by Aborigines, and I was going to hold start of the Urkult festival, and I was going to bring 18 Aborigines to here. I was working for a whole year for that, and 2 days before we were going to start, they phoned me and said, the guy you ordered, who should have the tickets, he isn't here. He ran away with the money, so we can't come. So suddenly I had to improvise and do another show, and it was also a tour booked in the northern part with the Aborigines. And I could cancel everything about except one thing, and that was a meeting with Aborigines from all over the planet coming to the northern part of Sweden. So I went there with dancers and musicians from different cultures, which I had been working with from this festival. And we did a performance, and everybody from each cultures who expected 18 Aborigines to come, they were like giving me this kind of body language, and they didn't know why we were there. But suddenly it changed in the middle of the night, because we coming there, we were living in a hut, in a cut Sami tent, and all the Aborigines were living in a hotel. And suddenly, in the night, they came into the cot, and we started to share things and sing together and tell stories. And I got this story from a young Sami about the sky elk, and I realized that in the Sami culture, they're having a relation to the elk or the moose, and no scientist or archaeologist had even asked the Samis who sort of lived on this ground, what is the relation towards the moose or the elk. So we started a film project from that, based on what is the relation towards the elk and the color red. And that was sort of the start of going deeper into the Sami mythology. And we realized that this fundament of different stories is sort of the fundament that differs from the Western culture. We lost most of our fundamental storytelling, and most of the stories, there are many stories, but most of the stories tells about the trickster. Instead of the mythology we always see in Western films about the actually Saint George and the dragon, sort of with a sword and with a conflict and with a hero. We have the trickster, and the trickster, you can't really trust the trickster, but he's always telling you to be aware, to be sharp, to have different abilities open. So I realized that this kind of mythology is sort of the base that has been kept in the Sami culture and also other cultures. And it's telling you to be to trust your inner truth, and it's also telling you, it's always telling you about that the everything is sacred, but you can be fooled, and you can take the wrong turn, but it's never too late to change and go back to the right turn. It's you're having one image in the Sami culture is the Saivo world, and we're coming from the Saivo spirit. We're emanating from the Saivo spirit. Everything is coming from there, and it's going there when we die. But during our presence here on this Middle Earth, the middle level, each step we take, we have a Saivo spirit like a mirror walking beneath us. So if we sense the inner, have the inner contact with the Saivo spirit, we go the right way. And if we lose that inner spirit, then we lose the contact with the Saivo world. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. Then we also done other films about the relation towards the bear and the reindeer. And but they all sort of telling the same basic stories. The basic stories are really simple, and it's sort of like knowing that complexity and simplicity is in the same. You have it in the same hand, so you can. Sometimes you think that it's much too complex to grasp, but the mythology can take it into simple stories which are complex. Yeah. Yeah. Can I also say something about? I was very happy this autumn when I found that the bishops in Sweden had said that they were going to take the rights of nature into their declaration. And I don't know if it's anybody of you who have contacts into the church, but I think it's really important that we need to get that into practice also. Like a symbolic gesture, now in Haverö, there was this beautiful forest called the Priest Forest at the church lake, which is now gone. It's clear cut, and even if we follow the rules to protect some red listed species, I think we need to look at it as a whole body, and we can't just keep the different organs. We have to have a living biosphere. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you for guiding us into and to step, not only visit, but actually to experience life in the forest and spirituality in the forest, and to connect with the trees and with the surrounding nature, but also to connect with each other as humans, because it's clear to me that as a group we have deepened our human relationships, and as a group we are now more personal, and we have increased the level of trust in between ourselves. So it's also clear to me that by listening to the trees, we can also not only grow wiser, but we can also strengthen our human relations, which I think is needed more than ever, considering the current pandemic and our severe biodiversity loss that is happening around us and where we are as well. So from SIDA's perspective, I would like to express our deepest thanks to you for guiding us, for contributing to the People and Planet. And I have learned a lot myself, and I'm certain that all of us will need time to continuously reflect on many of the learnings from today and from the forest. So thank you so much.